Good evening to all of you, and thank you for joining us here on 13 Plus. I'm Mary Coleman. Hope you're having a great evening so far. In case you missed our three-part series, we would like to share these stories with you once again. It's a story you will only see here on 13 News. Tucson police say they've solved a series of rape cases from more than 30 years ago, but tell us the suspect, still living in southern Arizona, may not face justice. Now, detectives say their hands are tied, all because the statute of limitations has run out, and victims believe the system has failed them.
There are kind of our terrifying cases. There the victims are home, in some cases asleep, some cases not asleep, but the suspect breaks in and then covers their face and sexually assaults them.
After 34 years, Tucson detectives say a suspected serial rapist has been identified through DNA. But the statute of limitations in Arizona may prevent prosecutors from seeking a conviction. I spent hours poring over documents related to the investigation. The cases went cold for years until a recent grant allowed TPD to do advanced DNA testing on its rape kits.
We're testing every kit, and we're letting every victim know that if we are able to identify a suspect, we're letting them know who the suspect is. That is their right to know.
The FBI notified TPD in May that the DNA of one man was tied to 3 different rapes from 1989 and 1990 near the U of A. In July, detectives responded to that man's home to serve a warrant to get a cheek swab. Days later, it was confirmed his DNA matched the DNA recovered in all 3 cases. In this lab report, officials note the frequency of occurrence of this DNA profile among unrelated individuals in the U.S. population is estimated to be 1 in 610 octillion. That's 610 followed by 27 zeros. But despite the DNA link, he has not yet been charged with the crime. That's because the statute of limitations has expired.
He's a serial offender, and I can't arrest him and get him off the streets. It's very alarming.
Through our investigation, we found out Abraham Pedrego is the man whose DNA is connected to these cases. We learned Pedrego had recently been employed as a firefighter with South Tucson Fire, the Tucson Airport Fire Department, and the Picture Rocks Fire District. Both South Tucson and Picture Rocks confirmed they terminated him after learning about the TPD findings, and he resigned from the Tucson Airport Authority after they placed him on paid leave for an investigation. To be clear, Pedrego has not been charged with a crime. 13 News wanted to give him the opportunity to talk with us about his DNA being tied to these cases and how that led to his firing and resignation at 2 area fire departments. I stopped by his house, but the area was gated, so I called. Hi, Abraham. My name's Mary Coleman. I'm calling from 13 News. He did not want to talk to us. Well, thank you again. Just wanted to give you the opportunity to speak. Documents revealed he had retained the Suzuki law firm for representation. I made multiple attempts to contact them and did not hear back.
It's pretty horrible. It's frustrating. It makes me angry. I can't really describe it beyond that.
Angry because no matter what the science shows or how much law enforcement believes someone may be guilty, the statute of limitations at the time of these crimes barred anything from being done after 7 years.
This case is particularly hard because these cases have remained unsolved for so long, and going back and notifying these victims that we have identified the suspect but are unable to make an arrest does not feel like justice. It's miserable.
Well, Well, in part two, victims of rape have been living in fear for decades as police tried to find the person responsible. Now they say they feel victimized again, learning the man detectives say is connected to these crimes may not face charges. In part two, two women who were victims in the late 80s and early 90s are bravely coming forward to talk about the traumatic events that changed their lives forever and to express their frustration that is now boiling over.
It was like the day before school started, basically. And I was in my Tucson apartment and I woke up to a towel over my head. I remember I couldn't see him, but I could just hear him, and I could see the knife and I could hear him. And he made me pull down my pants and he raped me. And then he told me to just stay there, and he left.
And I was about to die of suffocation. I couldn't breathe for quite a bit. And he put a knife to my stomach and said, "Stop fighting and don't scream or I will kill you." And he had his whole body on top of me, so I couldn't fight back because he was a lot stronger than me.
Terrifying moments forever ingrained in the memories of these two women, and a third, all of whom were brutally attacked near the University of Arizona campus in the late 80s and early 90s. The stories are all similar. A man broke into their home, covered their faces, threatened to kill them, and raped them. The pain and anguish these women felt was immediate and is still felt more than 30 years later.
It's a strange feeling because you can do normal things. You know, you can forget for a minute, you're doing something normal and you're okay, but your physical body has like this weird emotion, like you hear a noise or just something and it's a trigger and you're just instantly scared.
It's taken years of counseling and a good support system to help these women work through their trauma. They tell me it still comes in waves. So after decades, when detectives with the Tucson Police Department went to their homes to give them the news that a potential suspect had been identified, it was a shock.
Everything came back. I felt like the post-traumatic stress never really left. It was probably trauma that was stored. But it all came back as if it happened yesterday.
It was instantly a little bit of relief that it wasn't just, I wouldn't always be looking, because now we know who this person is. And then I think the second, I just honestly was in awe of these detectives and that how caring they were and still trying to figure this out.
But that relief was short-lived. They were informed that because of the statute of limitations at the time of their rapes, just 7 years, the man connected to the crimes by DNA may not be charged.
It does bring up a little bit of, well then did I want to know? I think it's the logic piece a little bit, because as I understand it, it's like, oh, well, if I had just been raped 6 months, 7 months later.
Yeah, no, that's not okay.
Different, and I think that's the hard part. It just isn't.
It's not.
It's not logical.
How could you open up a case, solve it, link this man with his DNA to 3 women, and break open our lives again, and then say, sorry, we can't arrest him? No, I'm sorry. I will not accept that. I will not accept that. We are both powerful women that are very educated and we know how to get things done. And there has to be a way to get this man behind bars, and I will dedicate my life to it.
The women tell me, though bittersweet, they have bonded through their trauma. They tell me they are going to use their experiences as a way to push for change and advocate for other victims.
I was determined even at that time. I knew this again won't destroy me and someday I will help someone, and I didn't know like who or where or how, but I knew like it's okay, someday I'm gonna help someone.
And the women hope their stories resonate with others, especially any other victims out there who have yet to come forward.
Justice needs to be served. He has gotten away with living a life for 35 years, and he caused so much trauma to us and turned our lives around in directions that they didn't need to go.
Well, statutes of limitations are put in place to protect people from unfair legal action once a certain amount of time has passed. But it's believed by Tucson police detectives and the victims we spoke with, who you just heard from, that no matter how many years have gone by, a crime as serious as rape should be brought before a jury. In part 3 of our series, we have more on the background of the statute at play and whether something can be done here.
He changed our lives forever and he threatened to kill us with a deadly weapon. We were very close to death.
Their innocence stolen in a matter of minutes. The pain of knowing their rapist is on the loose has lasted for years.
You can forget for a minute and you're doing something normal and you're okay, but your physical body has like this weird emotion, like you hear a noise or just something and it's a trigger and you're just instantly scared.
2 women spoke with 13 News, both victims of what police say was a serial rapist near the U of A campus in the late 80s and early 90s. There were no suspects then, but a recent grant allowed special DNA testing, and that testing brought law enforcement a hit. The same person suspected in 3 cases. The women say detectives notified them that a former firefighter for departments across southern Arizona is the man whose DNA was linked to the attacks. Detectives also tell them he may never face justice.
These cases are particularly frustrating as we're doing the in-person notification with them, and not only are we giving them the identity of the person that assaulted them, but at the same time we're telling them that unfortunately we can't make an arrest.
Frustration and anger from those who fight for justice every day, all due to a statute of limitations in place for violent sexual assaults, requiring prosecution within 7 years from when the crime was reported. It's a statute that was in place from 1973 through July of 1990.
And I don't know what the thought process was for having a statute of limitations on sexual assault back in the 90s. There currently is no statute of limitations for sexual assault. There is no statute of limitations for homicide. For violent sexual assaults that occurred before DNA testing was a thing, I don't understand why those statute of limitations exist.
The worst part for these victims is just months after their attacks, that statute was changed, pausing the 7-year clock until the identity of the person who committed the offense was known. In 1994, it was changed again, eliminating the statute of limitations on sexual assault or attempted sexual assault. Crimes that occurred prior to that change are not included.
If they can prosecute cold cases for murder, why not for rape? If they can't for rape, what is that saying? What is that saying? Because 99% of rapes are women. And what is that saying of valuing women? I'm sorry, but rape is equal to murder because he murdered parts of our souls.
I asked the women what they would say to prosecutors and those who may be able to change these rules.
I mean, it's just so simple. It's just, do you have a daughter? Do you have a wife? Do you have a mother? And it could be your son, that this could happen to. And could you look them in the face and say, oh, if it was just 7 months later, or if it was just a year later, this would all be different. It's just not logical. Just help us, help other people, and keep people safe.
Detectives have put their blood, sweat, and tears into these cases, sifting through all they can to find anything that may help move the case forward. I spoke with Pima County Attorney Laura Conover, who tells me her office is all systems go with an open file in these cases to see what can be done, if anything. She does not want the victims to think justice will not be served, but patience is wearing thin for everyone involved.
I would love for there to be change that allows us to go back and hold these people responsible. The victims have held on to this and they relive it probably every day of their lives. When we go and notify them, they know what we're there to talk about. They don't forget. If we can go back and hold these people responsible, I think it would be wonderful.
He's a serial rapist. What else has he done?
Well, detectives want any victims to come forward, no matter how long it has been. They say do not let this discourage you. If you did not have the opportunity to watch our series, we have this available on our website at KOLD.com. We hope you're having a great evening and will join us for 13 News Live at 10 for more of your news and weather. Here's a live look from our Mount Bigelow camera. Have a great weekend, friends.